Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you're new. Hi, I'm Mand. So today we're going to do the decks I'm most grateful for this year, and this is a tag created by the lovely Kait over at Moonflower Moments. I'll make sure to tag Kait's video below. I believe Grim is after joining us and yeah, is deciding to climb into a box because that's just what cats do. Anyway, I thought let's start the video with a beautiful incense stick. This one is Palo Santo scented. I swear you guys, this cold, flu, whatever the heck it is that's going around is absolutely tormenting because I wasn't stuffed up 2 weeks ago and now I feel all kind of stuffy today. So, oh, hello. So let's cleanse the space and kind of lift the energy a little bit, because I feel like it's been feeling a little heavy at the moment. I'm hoping I can do this. Sometimes there's no real elegant way or aesthetic way of doing this. I think this is starting to kind of come together nicely, don't you guys think? I mean, slowly but surely I'm like adding little bits and I'm having like the best time kind of creating a new space, which is really fun. So thank you all so much for the love on my sacred space. I really appreciate it, and I love sharing it with you guys, and I love that you guys love it so much as well. So grab a snack, grab a drink, whatever it is that you need to get comfy cozy, and let's get into the video. And I'm going to take a sip of water while I'm at it. So if you haven't hydrated today, make sure you drink some H2O, okay? Right? You know, don't be sipping the coffee all the time. I think I'm really talking to myself, but just in case you're drinking too much caffeine, just go drink a little bit of water to balance it out, right? We're all about balance here. So I'm a huge fan of gratitude and being grateful for things, right? And not just the decks. So this video is about decks, but just everything from this channel to the space to the connections that I've made. I'm feeling very sentimental and very emotional today. So yeah, there's a lot of gratefulness that I have for everything. And so, well, I feel like, social media sometimes can be a bit of a big fat lie, right? Because, and I think everybody's guilty of this. We all show up as we are, or as we feel that we can show up online. But we also don't always truly show everything, because obviously you need a certain amount of privacy, and, there's a personal life, and we have other things going on outside of our channels and who we are online. And so, to have such a community to be able to come to and to connect with, and, not to try and sound too woo-woo, but I mean, I am woo-woo. I mean, look at this. To have these soul connections that sometimes we may not have in our own physical personal life, right? To be able to have this space is something I will never take for granted, and I'm very appreciative. And yeah, so first of all, I want to say a huge thank you, and from a very grateful heart to have every one of you here that tunes in, and just for being my family, my online family. I appreciate every one of it. So let's get into the prompts. And the first one is the deck that has stood by my side through my darkest moments, like a sister. And so I find that very interesting because it's a different energy, right? So my Green Witch Tarot would be from a very maternal aspect of being there for me emotionally. There's something very nurturing, very caring, very understanding. And then, excuse me, when I'm trying to think as from a sister point of view, I was torn between two, but the deck that I picked for the second prompt kind of fits better. And so the one that I picked, and I believe Katie actually picked the first one that I picked for my second one. Anyway, so the one that I picked for my sister is the Light Series Tarot. Oh my goodness, this cat is getting stuck in everything. 1 second. Apologies about that. I said before she completely shrieds up. the lovely new space. So I picked the Light Series Tarot as one that has been there through many a dark moment and has really picked me up from a sister point of view. And so, well, sometimes this deck can be very soft and gentle. And, oh my goodness me, that cat, I swear. It has also been from a very sisterly aspect, right? So it's like, I love you, here are some hard truths that you need to hear sometimes. Because sisters do that, right? There's a tough love. And there is a tough love aspect to this, but not from, hold on, I'm going to have to get her out of that because she's going to get stuck. She didn't get stuck. We're good. So this has done many readings for areas of my life that I've found challenging, or I couldn't see the trees for the woods and all that, or the woods for the trees, whatever way that saying goes. And so it was able to help me see outside the box, right? It was able to communicate in a sense that I was like, oh yeah, it's like you're being too, not too emotional, but because you're too emotionally hyped, sometimes you can't see clearly. And so this deck has always helped me to see clearly, and I feel like that's what sisters do. They help you. Now, I don't actually have any sisters, right? I have 2 brothers. I'm an only girl. So for me and the sisters that I have that are my chosen sisters, right, they've helped me see aspects that I'm like, oh yeah, I never thought of seeing it that way. Or, you know, so this deck helps me see that I'm like, oh yeah, I never thought of it that way. Prompt number 2 is the deck that has told me the hardest truths. I think everybody knows this at this stage because I've mentioned how feisty this deck can be, and I believe this is the one that Katie actually chose for her first one, and it's the Enchanted for Hoxa. Oh my god, this is sassy, and it has given me some very difficult truths where I have been known to pop back cards that I didn't really want to have. I didn't really want to get those cards, or maybe I didn't like the message. And it was kind of like a tough SHIT. It's really tough. The deck doesn't really care for that because it only cares about giving the truth. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Sometimes I know when I feel called to work with this, I mentally have to prepare myself because it is feisty. It is feisty. It is sassy. But I will always say in the best possible way, it has your highest interest. Right, it literally only is for the greatest good for you. It only wants the best. And so sometimes hard truths are because it's for the best interest of you. It's for, you know, your best interest. And excuse me, it really just comes from a place of complete and utter love. There is no other way this deck could possibly show up for me. It is really from a place of love. But it will hit you with truths that you're like, okay, you could have done it gentler. And I'm like, you know, the deck kind of speaks in the sense of, I could have given that to you in an easier way, but I'm not going to because I'm not here to mollycoddle you. So if you want a deck that's a little bit harder on the truth side, this is the deck. Prompt number 3 is the deck that gave me language for my feelings. And this one kind of made me stop in my tracks and I went, oh, I feel like a lot of my decks, in one way or another, are able to articulate my feelings, but in different ways. And so the one that I kind of landed on was the Wildwood Tarot. And so that's an interesting pick for me because obviously, you know, I thought about the Healing Waters Oracle by Rebecca Campbell. For the reason being is I'm a water sign. I'm very much a water sign through and through. And so it was interesting that I kind of felt this one was the one that was able to articulate my feelings a lot better. I'm just going to make sure they're all the right side. So these are the facts. And the reason I felt that is because between the cards and the images and, you know, what I feel myself, the guidebook has played a massive part in being able to articulate sometimes how I've been feeling in the moment. And sometimes trying to say how I feel, or even put into words. Yeah, how I feel can be difficult because sometimes I don't even know. So, it, I don't even know how to explain it. Like, you're feeling a certain way, but to put a word on it, sometimes you're not feeling sad, but you're not feeling happy, but you're not feeling angry, but you're feeling something, but it's none of those. I feel like this deck gives it a good term or way to kind of look at it. Or maybe even if you're not feeling any particular way, this kind of reminds you, right, how to feel. So, and it keeps me grounded in the aspect of doing that as well. And like I said, this is beautiful. I love how Celtic-y this feels. It feels very, for me, I don't know, in one sense, relatable. How? I don't know, because we don't live like that anymore. But it's the guidebook that has been a huge help in this. Because of just the information. And so you have like roots and branches. So this is where it kind of ties in with the feelings. If you get what I'm trying to say here. Prompt number 4 is the deck that opened my eyes to what I could be. And this is so interesting. So the deck that I picked was the Phantasma Tarot by Paulina Fay. And this is interesting because, I suppose, as kids and we're growing up, we're always asked, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And, how do you feel, not even just how do you feel, but like, you're always asked, and I know myself, you ask, what do you want to be when you grow up and when you finish school and stuff like that. And so when we're kids, we have several different answers, but I think as you get older, nobody asks you anymore because they believe you have it figured out. And I've come to the conclusion that a lot of us as adults don't have it figured out. Now, I'm not saying that this deck doesn't have it figured out. It does. What it helped me realize in what I could be is that it's funny because necessarily this wouldn't be my cup of tea, right? I'm not a big tea drinker. But then I realized that there are certain tea that I do like. So while I may not like the regular, normal, socially acceptable tea, right, that there are other ones that I like. So I'm mainly a coffee drinker, right? I'm probably doing a poor explanation of this. But what I'm trying to say is that not everyone is going to like tea. I remember hearing this saying is like, you could be the juiciest peach, the best peach on this planet, and you'll always have somebody that doesn't like peaches, right? And so this deck reminded me that, well, initially, I never thought I'd like these kind of decks. I took a chance and I got one. And I love it. And I realized that while first glance, it may not be my cup of tea, it worked out absolutely beautifully well because apparently it was right up my alley and it was what I always needed at some stage. And when I reach for this, I'll know it'll work for me. And so that it reminds me that while I may not be everybody's cup of tea, the possibilities of who I can be are endless, right? So, there'll always be those that will take a chance, right? And so remember to take that chance at being whatever it is, and that you're always allowed to change your mind and you can be anything you want to be at any stage of your life. And it doesn't matter because the only person's opinion that matters at the end of the day will always be your own. Anyway, next prompt. The next prompt is prompt number 5, and it's the deck that dared me to live. And I was thinking, okay, so what is the deck that dared me to live, to really go all out and things like that? And it is the Desert Illuminations Tarot by Lindsay D. Williams. And the reason I picked this is because of the vibrancy of this deck, right? And as you can see, each deck kind of brings its own little energy and little and big energy, depending on the deck. And I love this teal edging. I know my camera is not picking it up the best, but this deck has a vibrancy and an oddity and an unusualness that I absolutely love. I find it so hilariously brilliant. It reminds me, again, there's beauty in the odd and the weird and the wonderful and the strange, and there's just beauty to be found in uniqueness. And again, back to the tea, even though again I'm not a tea drinker. That this is not everybody's cup of tea. But you know what? You're living your life for you and only you. And that's what this deck reminds me, is that you are literally living your life for yourself and no one else. And to just embrace it. And I love it. I love this oddity, and it gives me great nostalgia, right? There's something very, I don't know, it reminds me being a kid playing The Sims. And what's the word I'm looking for? The Sims and the Strangeville, I think it was, the aliens and things like that. And I love this. This deck reminds me to embrace the colourful aspect of life, right? It's to bring the vibrancy, because I'm not one for the very bright colours. Prompt number 6 is the deck that celebrated my biggest victories. And without a shadow of a doubt, I had to pick up the Ostara Tarot. This deck means so much to me. I can't even put into words. I can't even get into the box either. So, you know, there's that. But this deck has helped me to remember my victories as well, right? Sometimes we can get too caught up in, oh my goodness, box design wise, 10 out of 10 don't recommend. But that's such a minor thing. This deck has reminded me to celebrate my victories. Okay, so it is quite glossy. And it has helped me to go and be proud. You know, it has helped me to be proud of them. And it has helped me to see that sometimes while things may not always be going how I visualized or how I planned, you know, life throws wobblers, right? Such as. And this deck has been a great reminder that this too shall pass. But remember all the things that you have achieved. And so it always reminds me, I suppose I should say, of the things that I have accomplished and things I should be proud of. Because I know myself, and maybe some of you can relate to this, that I don't always necessarily celebrate everything that I've achieved, because I tend to downplay certain things, and I'm like, oh well, you know, I could do this better, or it's not really that big of a deal. And certain like everything should be treated as like a big deal, right? Like mini milestones, from, let's say, starting a channel, that's a big deal, right? Putting yourself out there, that's a big deal. Reaching your first 10 subscribers, that's a big deal. 100 subscribers, that's a big deal. Whatever it is, the milestone, they're all big deals, and they should all be celebrated. And I don't think you should ever downplay certain things, because again, I always try to remind myself that comparison is the thief of joy, and we can get very caught up. So this deck reminds me not to compare myself to other people's victories, that my own victories are just as important. Number 7 is the deck that taught me the importance of stillness. And what I chose was the Forest of Enchantment Tarot by Lunia Weatherstone. And I won't butcher the illustrator's name, but it is here. And this deck, oh my goodness me. It's really not like any other deck that I have, in a sense of, this for me has kind of like a old fairy tale feeling, right? And so sometimes to understand the story excuse me, or the fairy tale, you know, we have to be still and listen and remember, you know, not always, I don't always want to look up, right, the story. I want to see what the card or the image is trying to tell me. And so this deck has always been a great one for that, creating stillness, or even when you're working with it, it's like everything just stops and you're just immersed in the cards. And so it feels like time does go still, right? And you're transformed or transported into the cards. And how could you not love this deck? This is just, I really enjoy this deck. Prompt number 8 is the deck that gave me more questions than answers. And this is Sacred Rebels. I picked this deck because honestly, sometimes this deck has given me more questions than answers in the sense that, you know, I end up asking more questions when I look at these cards, right? When I see the images, like, yes, they speak clearly and I hear the message, but sometimes it does leave me with questions. Then I'm kind of like, okay, I didn't realize when I asked the question, I was going to have more questions. And so these cards, which I have to remember the slight nudity, boys, these cards are, oh my god, okay, you guys know the deck. I'm just not going through this and I'm not doing the washi tape stuff with it. But yeah, this deck has left me with more questions. It has answered my question with a question, which is very annoying, but sometimes when it comes to these things, necessary. Prompt number 9, I'm trying to not take too long with this, is the deck that taught me to notice magic in the mundane. I knew without a shadow of a doubt which deck I was going for, and it was Everyday Witch Tarot. Everyday Witch Tarot is definitely the deck I've had this for a very long time. This deck is in my collection. It's one of the first decks that I actually got, and I love the artwork, but it always reminds me that there is beauty to be found in just everyday being, right? So no, we don't live like this, but there is beauty to be found in even the most difficult, challenging moments. And so while we don't always necessarily see them straight away, the beauty in even sometimes tragic moments, but sometimes when we look back, we go, oh yeah, okay, that was a thing. So it might be as simple as in the absolute midst of grief or challenging moments where maybe you're questioning certain things, right? That a simple magic moment or a glimmer, such as seeing an angel number or just a specific number that means something to you, that reminds you, like, yes, I've gone through hard times and, I got through it. And so it's just, this deck reminds me that there are always glimmers. There's always glimmers to be found, even in challenging moments. Prompt number 10 is the deck that encourages me to embrace levity. And so I had to actually, I'll be honest, I had to look that up. And so for me, the way I picked it or picked it up or interpreted it was kind of not taking everything so serious, to approach things with a sense of humor, or like approaching something serious with a sense of humor. And so I definitely feel like sometimes I do have that kind of sense of humor in very serious moments, only because heavy moments can get too heavy for me, and so I need to lighten it to make it easier to comprehend. And the deck that I actually picked for this, which was interesting, it actually it picked itself, really. I'm just not showing it, is the Hedge Witch. Interesting choice. I know it is an interesting choice, but there was something about this that I kind of looked at it and I went, yeah, I see what you mean. Because now I've done a walkthrough of this deck. I love this deck. It's a total manned deck. If I was to pick one that embodied me, this was it. First of all, it's odd and it's weird and it's unusual, a bit like myself, and I love that. But it reminds me to have fun in the seriousness of life, right? Don't take everything so serious. Approach it with a good sense of humor, which I do have. I have quite a wicked sense of humor. My family and Jamie, who is also family, right? He's my partner, but we're families. So that, like, we all approach even the most serious of moments with, I suppose some people might find it a bit odd, going like, you're really laughing. Sometimes, yes, you have to make light of the situation, because if you don't, the other option is crying, and sometimes you're just sick of it. You're sick of that crying, and so this deck reminds me of that, and has a lovely fantasy feel, and it's like, I don't want to say escapism from it, because it doesn't, boy, it is a great deck to just go, okay, you don't need to take everything so serious. There is like a lightness, and this embodies it beautifully. Prompt number 11 is the deck that shifted my practice, and that was the Circe Oracle. And I found this interesting as because I was like, okay, how did this shift my practice for me? This deck, oh my gosh, I don't actually know how to put into words how this deck has helped shift my practice this year, especially. It has shown me grace and peace and stillness as well, I suppose. So I could have used that for the stillness prompt, but it has shown me to give myself grace, to allow myself the space that I need, whatever it is that I need in my practice. That sometimes all you need is just the one deck to speak to you as is. And so this deck is fantastic for that. It is a real give yourself grace deck. It is a really highly spiritual, right? So it's that very high vibrational, and it is unconditional love. It's like, I'm always going to be here for you, regardless of how long you may walk away from your practice or what may come up for you right now that you need to take a step back. And so this deck has shifted my practice in the reminder that I don't always need to consistently be stuck in decks, that I'm okay to come back when I'm ready to do so. And last but certainly not least is the deck that jump-started a creative project. And I'll always say that the Muse Tarot has always been the one that has helped me start creative projects. It has reminded me of my creative aspect. There's something very creative about the Muse, but I suppose it's interesting because now it's just the penny dropped. Don't we all have like a muse when we're creating, or an inspiration? And so I feel like this deck was really created for that creative aspect that we sometimes feel like we're not sure of, or, you know, again, that creative block. It helps unblock it, right? And I won't touch upon it this too much because I feel like I have talked about this quite a lot, but this deck has definitely helped with creative projects and creative blocks that I've had. It helps me kind of see outside the box. Alright, my loves, so that is the end of the video. Thank you all so much for hanging out with me, and I hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much again to Kait for creating such a great tag. I really had fun doing this. Definitely brought up all the emotions, so thank you. It was much needed. And as always, if you haven't hit the subscribe button, I'd love to have you part of the family. We're pretty awesome here, if I do say so myself. And hit the bell so you'll be notified when I upload. And as always, I hope you have a wonderful day, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world. And remember, stay magical, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye, guys.